It's been a pretty extraordinary week in British politics, and some might say pretty extraordinary day in British politics. The day's the day we learn that there will be surveillance cameras, not just in our big cities, but literally in every single village. The surveillance state is getting very, very close indeed. And that, of course, in the same week that we learn that the 800-year right to trial by jury is to be abolished in the majority of cases. And by the way, the argument that magistrates deal with many of the minor cases, well, think about it, 3 magistrates actually form a mini jury of their own. And of course, despite not being in the manifesto, the government want to introduce digital ID, leaving literally every single one of us in this country open to hackers. And it is, frankly, a very authoritarian government. It doesn't really believe in liberty. It doesn't really believe in individual freedom. And we learned, and it began last year, it doesn't really believe in democracy either. The decision last year for 7 of the county council elections not to go ahead on May the 1st bore no logic at all. How was it logical that Kent went ahead, but just across the river, Essex didn't? It made no sense at all. Now, I know one of the reasons for it, of course, was the Conservative leaders of those councils were urging the government not for the elections to go ahead because they wanted to stay in place. Well, we had been promised mayoral elections this year, and I spoke to a senior member of an Essex council this morning who told me word for word, the councils are ready for these elections and we have spent millions across the county of Essex alone in preparation. Now, the fact that we've been told that the county council elections will go ahead just 1 year late is a good thing, not a bad thing. But the fact that these mayoral contests are to be postponed for a further 2 years is monstrous, given firstly that the electorate were told they would go ahead, given the amount of money that's been spent in preparing for them. But there's another factor I think we should consider. My voters in Clacton will now be expected and asked to vote in 2026, in 2027, and in 2028. Forgive me, but they might be getting slightly confused as to what's going on in local government. Well, it is a local government reorganisation. I have to say, it's one personally that I'm completely opposed to. The concept of out on the end of Essex, tendering district council, which at least people do bear some sense of belonging to, identity with, allegiance to, will get replaced by some amorphous mass of a unitary, is not something that I approve of or believe in at all. But I have to accept there's nothing we can do to stop it. But the other reason why these mayoral elections should go ahead is we're going to need an elected figure in local politics to actually explain to people why they're being asked to vote year after year after year. So you really could say to yourself, there is absolutely no reason why these elections should not go ahead. But then there is, of course, one very big reason why these elections should not go ahead, and there's no prizes for guessing, but it is an electoral calculus put out their figures just a couple of hours ago that Reform would have won all 4 of these contests and would have won them quite comfortably. The government are basically committing electoral fraud upon the electorate, who had every opportunity to put Reform mayors in place. Those elections would have been under first past the post. Nothing really could have changed that. By the time 2028 comes along, it'll be AV or some other system which the government think will disfavour the prospects of a Reform win. You believe it or not believe it, the Guido Fawkes website say they've seen a briefing that the government wishes to make sure that Reform can't win more than 1 mayoral contest every year. So what is happening is wrong. However, our adopted mayoral candidates, Peter Harris, Rear Admiral Parry, David Bick and Paul Lynham, they will stay in place. They will be our candidates in 2028, and they will now lead our county council campaigns in those areas. I don't think the government can now cancel those county council elections. They said only in exceptional circumstances, but I think that probably would mean there has to be a sort of declaration, perhaps, of another pandemic. So we are annoyed, we are angry at what happened last year, and it just shows the total and utter disdain this country has for liberty, democracy, freedom in this country, and everything that we have held dear. I have to say, personally, I increasingly hold the individuals that run this government with absolute and total contempt. So today is not a complete loss for us, and I suspect that this time yesterday we might have seen an attempt to postpone the county council elections for a further year, but perhaps they've realised just what a level of uproar and outrage that might have caused. We did last year launch a petition on this, which gained hundreds of thousands of votes, and we've launched that petition again today. Interestingly, the Conservative Party are now adopting exactly the same slogan as us, using the same font size on their social media, and pretending that they, too, are champions of democracy when it's their very own council leaders last year and this year urging for the elections not to go ahead. So we will fight the county elections, our mayoral candidates will stay in place, and we will, whatever the system, go ahead and win those council elections next year.
Not long ago, I introduced Claude Note, a powerful AI-enabled meeting assistant, and today we're excited to have in hand Claude's latest upgraded version. Is this a platinum credit card? Nope. It's Claude Note Pro, your updated AI-powered meeting assistant. With 4 built-in microphones, Claude Note captures everything and records crystal clear audio up to 5 meters away. But it's more than a recorder. Take photos, jot ideas, mark highlights, and during key discussions, if I press the button just right here, it instantly saves 30 seconds of key audio as a highlight. I never miss important details. And you've got 50 hours non-stop recording on Note Pro, or 60 hours on standby. There's a smart display showing battery life, recording status, and file transfers, so you always know what's going on. Then Claude turns it into structured notes, summaries, insights, to-dos, even analysis of power dynamics in the room. And with Ask Claude, your contextual AI assistant, you can draft emails, extract data, brainstorm, or find anything across past meetings. And you're safe knowing that your data is yours and completely private. Click the link in the video description to pre-order your Claude Note Pro. And if you'd like to experience Claude Intelligence even earlier, I've got a special offer for you. Use the code GB20 when ordering Claude Note and get 20% off.
Now, I know that there'll be a variety of questions because reform does seem to be in the news quite a lot lately. So this is a good opportunity to ask pretty much whatever you want. It's open season. I'm on my Jack Jones, so here we go. Let's start with Damien Grammaticus from the BBC.
Yeah, Mr. Farage, can I just ask you say open season for anything? Can I ask just about something different?
Yes, of course you can. My dear fellow, I would expect nothing less from our favourite national broadcaster.
Thank you very much. This morning, Richard Tice said on the radio, he was asked about the comments made by schoolmates of yours who had said that the comments you made they viewed as racist and offensive. He said that they were lying. You have said before that you did make comments, it made them banter, it wasn't directly racial viewing. So Richard Tice is wrong.
I thought this morning's performance by one of your lower grade presenters on the Today programme was utterly disgraceful. I think to frame a question around the leader of Reform's relationship with Hitler, which is how she framed it, was despicable, disgusting, beyond belief. Are you surprised that 500,000 people every year refuse to pay the licence fee? But let me say this to you. The double standards and hypocrisy of the BBC are absolutely astonishing. At the time I was alleged to have made these remarks, one of your most popular weekly shows was the Black and White Minstrels, right? The BBC were very happy to use blackface. Oh, and not just in the Black and White Minstrels, you did it in It Ain't Half Hot Mum as well. And what about Alf Garnett? Do you remember what he called Marigold? Do you remember the word he used to describe Marigold on not live, but on primetime national TV? I better not repeat the word, otherwise you'll all use it and say that I used it. Homophobia? It ain't half hot, mum. Are you being served? Oh, and what about Bernard Manning? Perfectly happy at exactly the same time for Bernard Manning to appear on primetime national BBC comedy, telling jokes for which these days you'd probably get a knock at the door from our thought police and perhaps get a 31-month prison sentence. I cannot put up with the double standards of the BBC about what I'm alleged to have said 49 years ago and what you were putting out on mainstream content. So I want an apology from the BBC for virtually everything you did throughout the 1970s and 80s. And I will respond to your direct question. I've received many letters over the course of the last few days from people that I was at school with. This one I think is particularly relevant. I was a Jewish pupil at Dulwich College at the same time, and I remember him very well. While there was plenty of macho, tongue-in-cheek schoolboy banter, it was humour. And yes, sometimes it was offensive, rather like most of the BBC's output, but never with malice. I never heard him racially abuse anyone. If he had, he would have been reported and punished. He wasn't. The news stories are without evidence except for belatedly politically dubious recollections from nearly half a century ago. Back in the 1970s, the culture was very different. Perhaps, Damon, you should reflect on that. Especially at Dulwich. Lots of boys said things they'd regret today, or just laugh at. Whilst Nigel stood out, he was neither aggressive nor a racist. If I can help in any way, let me know. And I've had plenty of those messages over the course of the last few days, and I'm sick to death of the double standards and hypocrisy, above all, of your organisation. And what happened on the Today programme this morning was a complete bloody disgrace. Next, Sam Coates from Sky News. No, I'm done with you, thank you.
My question was, he said they were lying. And he sounds
Sam Coates from Sky. I'm really, until you apologise for all of your output, your appalling output, at the same time that I'm accused of saying these things which I deny, I'm not speaking to you. All right? Sam Coates, Sky News. Yes.
£9 million is a what donation. It was given to another party. You'd expect quite a lot of transparency around it. So,
sorry.
Can you tell us how often do you speak to Christopher Harbour? What do you talk about? What do you think he wants from the reformed UK government? And if he loves Britain so much, why does he spend so long in Thailand?
Because that's where he's been based for some of his business activities for many, many years. As you know, Sam, because you're better researched than the BBC on some things, he has a global business. He's got business interests in all the continents of the world. His natural home is here. His donation is nothing out of the blue. It's nothing new. I mean, after all, he gave a significant amount of money. He was a dedicated Brexiteer. He gave a significant amount of money to the Brexit Party at the time, starting off with the European elections in 2019. And, you know, I think what he wants to do, really, is to try and help us get onto a level playing field with the trade union-funded Labour Party and a Conservative Party, where there seems to be a remarkable correlation, I can't think why, between donations and membership of the House of Lords. So I think that what Mr Harbour is trying to do is get us onto a level playing field. Yes, it is a very big donation, but I mean, bear in mind, you know, that the Labour Party, literally on the eve of the election in 24, took £4 million from a tax haven-based hedge fund with shares in oil and the arms industry, So perhaps it's not quite as unusual as you think. And does he want, hang on, does he want anything from me? No. Absolutely nothing in return at all. He just happens to think that we've not made the most of Brexit, that we're not getting into the 21st century technologies, and for all the talk about data centres, for all the talk about AI, for all the talk, well, at least from us at least, not the others, about crypto, you know, we cannot do this without the most massive re-evaluation of what is currently a catastrophic energy policy. Does he want anything in return for his money? I promise you, absolutely nothing. Do I speak to him regularly? Maybe once a month, maybe once every 6 weeks, but certainly not more than that. And have I promised him anything? Hand on heart, I have not promised him a single thing in return for his donation. Thank you. Can we go on?
Thank you. Catherine Forster, GB News.
Microphones everywhere.
Try that again. Catherine Forster, GB News.
Yeah.
And you've accused the government of committing electoral fraud, but they say that they're just trying to devolve powers back to local communities.
Oh, yes.
Don't they have a point? And also, the inquiry onto the Dawn Sturgis murder has found that Putin is morally responsible. Is that your view too? Because at the time that the Skripals were still in hospital, didn't you say that the then government had jumped the gun in blaming Russia? Thank you.
I didn't know what had happened. There was a poisoning. Do I think Putin's a monster? I think he proves that with every single week that goes by. I think, you know, my friend Donald Trump genuinely thought he could somehow get the Ukrainians, the Russian leaders together and forge some kind of sensible compromise to end the sort of scale of killing we've not seen on a battlefield since probably World War I, or maybe Stalingrad, going on in Europe. And Putin proves with every week that goes by that he's not rational, that he doesn't want a just settlement, and that frankly he is an incredibly dangerous man. So of that there is absolutely no doubt. And by the way, you know, this makes me laugh with this mob that we pay money to every year, and others. You know, I'm pro-Putin. Because I once said in 2013, I admired him as a leader, but disliked him as a human being and wouldn't live in the Soviet Union. Shortly after, and I'm a Russian asset, apparently, according to Starmer, for doing that. A year after that, the Queen met him. Whether she was a Russian asset, I'm not entirely sure. So that's that. In terms of devolution, well, the definition of devolution, of course, is passing power from central government down so that decision-making is nearer the people. Tendring District Council, which has 2 parliamentary constituencies in it, is geographically right out on the eastern front of Essex. It's quite tough to get to by road and by rail, but it does have an identifiable district council, one that arguably, indeed Peter Harris was leader of it a couple of years ago, one that arguably has been better led than many councils in the country, that is not saddled with a great degree of debt, and they will be giving all their powers away and up to a higher amorphous unitary, probably based in Colchester, but we don't know, Peter, where it's going to be based or what it's going to be, and the county of Essex will be divided up into 3, 4 or 5 separate unitaries. So I just don't buy this. And very interestingly, Bob Russell, who was the Lib Dem Member of Parliament for Colchester for many years, he and I have been at one on this, and it's nice to agree with them occasionally on something. And he says, well, back in 1973 was the last major government reorganisation, but nobody cancelled elections of any kind. They actually held elections to see what the electorate thought of what the proposed changes were. And that argument now seems to be out of the window. So I just don't buy devolution in every sense, because district councils are handing powers up to unitaries. And I think the upshot of this will be that the smaller rural communities around our country will find themselves increasingly governed by decisions made by cities or major towns and big population centres. And I think, given, frankly, the assault that this government has launched on our rural communities, this will go down very, very badly indeed. Harry Horton, ITV News.
much. I've spoken to another people from Dulwich
Good for
College.
you. Let's move on to the time,
Stefan
shall we?
Baranok. He says he can remember you
Very good.
making hissing noises
Very
towards
good.
Peter Attention.
Harry, you are
Jewish
wasting your
people.
time.
He's-
Bernard Manning. Bernard Manning.
allegations.
Bernard Manning. Do you want to hear some of the Bernard Manning jokes on ITV?
These are pretty serious allegations.
I'm sure they are.
Remember you
I'm sure they are.
making noises
Very good.
towards Jewish people
Very good.
and joking about how Hitler should have dealt with.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You,
I'm sure.
like your deputy leader,
I'm sure.
think these allegations are also made of
Shall I reread this letter to you? Shall I reread this letter to you? There was plenty of macho, tongue-in-cheek schoolboy banter when I was there with Farage. I was a Jewish pupil. It was humour, sometimes offensive, but never with malice. And I'm just frankly, Harry, as I say, you were the channel of Bernard Manning. He occasionally appeared on the Beeb. Your channel, at the same time that I'm accused of saying this, which I deny in any malicious or nasty way, at the same time as that, you every single week had homophobic content, you had racist content, you had all sorts of content which these days you'd be locked up for. So let's cut the double standards from British broadcasters, shall we? I've made it as clear as I'm going to. Let's go to Tim Ross from Politico.
So, in light of the comments from Emma Barnett this morning on the Today programme, talking about your, quotes, relationship with Hitler.
Yeah, lovely, wasn't it? Charming. It's what I pay my licence fee for, after all.
If that's not true, will you and your lawyers be considering legal action against the BBC on defamation grounds on that? And then very quickly for our international readers, I just wondered, obviously you said Putin doesn't want a just settlement in Ukraine. Will you be advising your friend, the President of the United States, to do everything he can to help Ukraine win on the battlefield now and change course?
Okay, that's a big question. In terms of legal action, there's one legal action I wasn't necessarily going to say this, but you teased it out of me. You say and say. The one legal action that we're going to consider tonight, but I've not yet had proper time to look at it, is whether we can go to judicial review to make these mayoral elections go ahead. That is something I'll be looking at tonight, and I can't really give you a firm opinion on it now, only to say that we have talked to our lawyers briefly before we came in this room, and we're considering that. When it comes to generally fighting libel actions, defamation actions, I have fought them in the past. I've never lost one. I haven't fought very many, but my experience is they take up a huge amount of your emotional capital, your financial capital. You almost become obsessed with the case, and you live, breathe and sleep it to the detriment of virtually everything else.